Go ahead, imagine your life with peaceful focus and absolute command of your day. We want you to use the CES unit, get familiar with it. It will bring you peaceful focus, better sleep, and lower your feelings of stress or anxiety. We hope that you enjoy today's lesson and that it will help you on this journey. Today we're going to talk about this technology. This is called a CES unit, or a cranial electrical stimulation device. We're going to look at how it works, why it's important today, maybe more than ever before, how it might help you, how it might even help change your life. It has applications for sports. It has, especially baseball, we have baseball players using it. We have a professional boxer who's using it. We're going to talk about that, how it's useful in sports, but also it's FDA approved for the treatment of anxiety, depression, and insomnia. It has off-label uses like post-traumatic stress disorder, big push to be able to use it with veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder, especially today, the world today. We're going to talk about the world today, how it's changed a little bit, and how something like this can really make a difference to people beginning today.
What's up guys, Coach Zinger here. Wanted to share a little bit of my experience with the CES unit and working with Dr. Doug. It's been a game changer. More relaxed, more focused, and just in general feel more alert and aware of what's going on around me. Definitely highly recommend anything you can do to train your brain.
So the CES unit is literally 50-year-old technology. It puts a small, teeny tiny current of electricity from one lead to the other, right through the middle of the brain. Calms down that central part of the brain, also activates the vagus nerve. So it reduces anxiety for the people who respond to it. Not everybody responds to it, but I would say 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10 people respond to it. They'll have a day and night difference from it. Decreasing anxiety, bringing on a sense of peace, being able to function better under pressure. It can be used at work. It can be used for sports.
Well, we seem to be living in the middle of that old Chinese curse. May you live in interesting times, because we are living in some of the most interesting times of my lifetime, that's for sure. After the COVID lockdown, the world simply is a different place. It may not impact you as much as your next door neighbors or people that are older than you or people that are younger than you, but it has impacted lots and lots of people. The COVID-19 lockdowns were hard on everyone, but especially on children and teenagers all over the world. Isolation from peer groups, less physical activities, sports teams were shut down. There's a loss of routine in their lives. Here in America, kids were online for school, online classes for 2 years. So there was a loss of this personal discipline, a loss of a sense of achievement, needing to achieve. There was less actual interaction, a loss of community with other people. There's no church youth groups, there's no football team, there are no football games, and screen time increased dramatically. Of course, the biggest impact on adults came with things like isolation from family members. You couldn't go to grandma's birthday, and if grandma went in the hospital, you couldn't see her in the hospital. I had all kinds of friends who were in the hospitals I could not go visit. People lost jobs. People were threatened to lose their jobs. There was restricted access to all kinds of goods. Think about toilet paper. How many times did you stand in line for an hour to get some toilet paper back in the day? And then all kinds of services, support services and mental health services for people No, they weren't available. So researchers at Johns Hopkins University have concluded now that the lockdowns did little to reduce COVID deaths, but had devastating effects on the economy and on society. Now, I believe we're going to get through that. I believe it's going to change, but that's where we are right now. When it comes to children and teenagers, in 2021, so this is after a year and a half of the lockdowns, 37% of teenagers reported poor mental health. 44% reported persistently feeling sad or hopeless. And 29% reported that a parent had lost his or her job. There was a loss of connectedness to friends, to staff, to parents, to coaches, to teammates. But George Barna has just recently done a study, and this is fascinating to me. As hard as the lockdowns have been on everybody around the world, and I mean some number, like almost 1 million children and teenagers died of starvation during the lockdowns in Africa. But Barna's recent research into teenagers around the world, 24,000 teenagers from like 85 different countries around the world, said this is the most optimistic, engaged, and collaborative generation. It's called the open generation because most teenagers around the world have a positive view of the future. 87% say their generation has the ability to make a positive and meaningful impact on the world. So, while the number of depressed, sad, lonely, and withdrawn teenagers and children have grown in the last 2 years, so has optimism on the other side of the scale. Kids that were already optimistic and wanted to change the world are much more optimistic and much more convinced it's going to be their generation to make a positive impact in the world. 2 other current studies are very interesting. One is about COVID brain fog, and I see a couple of people every week for just that, the long-term effects of COVID. This one study that I just recently read talked about COVID brain fog. It said 40% of people who ever had contracted COVID have had long COVID symptoms, 40%. And the most common of the long COVID symptoms are brain fog, memory issues, poor concentration, and that these can last over a year. But brain fog, memory issues, and poor concentration. And just as an aside, I've seen them respond really well to the kinds of treatment that we have provided to people. So it's not like a permanent thing, it just needs to be treated. Also just recently, the serotonin hypothesis of depression has passed away. Research says there is no link between serotonin and depression. So the question becomes, why do SSRIs work? They do work. Don't stop taking your medication because that hypothesis seems to be wrong. Why do SSRIs work? And it may be they have more important effects on neuroplasticity than on the serotonin levels in the brain. Neuroplasticity. This is the core of what it is that we do with neurofeedback and CES units that we're going to talk about today, and the MEND. Neuroplasticity. I remember Len Oakes writing about this about 25 years ago, that he postulated that the way that Prozac worked was it increased neuroplasticity in the brain. In other words, your brain changes and molds itself to the environment you're in, and given the right nudge, your brain can build itself to be an optimistic, loving, caring, moving forward kind of machine because of neuroplasticity. So don't stop taking your medication, just talk with your doctor. But neuroplasticity might really be the key, and we need to explore this. So the CES unit can be used for depression, anxiety, insomnia. It has applications for PTSD in veterans or other people. ADHD, there's research on that. There's research on post-concussion syndrome or TBIs, and there's research on fibromyalgia. So it has a variety of uses, but it's FDA approved for depression, anxiety, and insomnia. It's the most commonly used stimulation in the U.S. This is not electroshock therapy. It's a teeny tiny pulse that is just enough to stimulate the vagus nerve to calm down the sympathetic nervous system and activate the parasympathetic nervous system. A number of studies. Here are some examples of studies that have been done: insomnia, depression, anxiety, drug abstinence, right? So drug abuse and cognitive dysfunctions. All of these things are part of research studies going back a long time. This is a fibromyalgia study. You got a pre-study levels. It's a control group, so the sham treatment, and then setting the unit up so you can't actually feel it while it's running, the results from that, and then setting the unit up to where you can feel it, get different results on those things. But you see the results on both the CES treatment groups were really great. Sleep improved tremendously. Very helpful here in this fibromyalgia study. Here's an ADHD study. Changes in IQ scores. This is very interesting. So the pre-test levels were average, a little bit less than average maybe, in full-scale verbal IQ and performance IQ, where we started there. But with treatment, you see the IQ scores go up, especially on the performance side of the scale. As much as 20 points goes up. That's very, very significant. We also see here anxiety went down. So a number of ADHD kids have anxiety, and a number of ADHD kids have depression. And we see the symptoms of both of that went way down in these studies. Here are other studies that were done looking at a sense of well-being. Business managers, 30% improvement. Pain patients, recovering addicts, and closed head injuries, 30% or more in the sense of a feeling of well-being. Pain response with treatment, self-treating with CES, not even going to a doctor's office. They just got a unit, they use it a couple of times a day. Great improvement. Pain management, migraine headaches. One study said that they had half as many headaches in the study. Fibromyalgia, great reduction of pain. It can be used for that as well. So the advantages of it, it's drug-free, can be used with medications, but it can be a drug-free treatment. There's no significant side effects, no contraindications with medications. It's portable, goes in your pocket. It's less expensive than medications typically. You know, the prices run from $300 to $3,000, but the CES Ultra, that's a unit that we've used for 30 years. It's about $300, $350. It's not habit forming. It's a good option.